have been studying crack since December of 1983. We have learned tremendous things. One of the things we learned is just how harmful it can be. I'm sure all of you know that crack is usually smoked in a pipe like this. What you may not know and what you need to know is that in addition to being smoked on marijuana, it is also smoked in regular cigarettes. It's important for you to know that, because if they slip these cigarettes to your children will be smoking crack and they will not know it.
This is Bill Hopkins. It is at rallies like this one in the South Bronx that this virtual one-man crusade spreads the word about crack. As a former policeman, Hopkins spent 20 years working in the streets of New York, first walking a beat, then working with youth gangs and drug addicts. It is against that background that Hopkins directs one of the country's most unusual efforts against this most unusual epidemic. He heads the Street Studies Research Unit for New York State's Drug Abuse Agency.
I was a cop here in the Bronx for 20 years, right here in the 4-8 precinct. I've been with the Narcotic Commission for 19 years. I have never seen anything as harmful as crack. It's dangerous, it's deadly, it will kill you.
It is a message that is finally starting to hit home. Many homes, in fact. Cocaine-related deaths have increased dramatically in the past year, along with dramatic increases in violence and crime, all attributed to crack. And yet, it is an epidemic that seems to have caught law enforcement by surprise, and almost everyone else except Bill Hopkins. Now everyone is trying to find out more about crack, from the residents of threatened neighborhoods to officials of already overburdened courts. And they are calling on Bill Hopkins. Here at the county courthouse in the Bronx, Hopkins helps conduct a seminar on crack for judges, prosecutors, and attorneys.
I have here samples of the various sizes of crack. There's a $5 size, a $10, a $20, and a $50 size. They call it the jumbo. If you were to snort this cocaine that you buy in the street, it will take 1 to 3 minutes for you to get a high. If you smoke the crack that's in here, you will get your high in 4 seconds. The major differences between the two, and remember that this comes from this. When you buy this in the street, it is normally between 15 to 25% pure. After you have processed it into this form, you now have cocaine that is between 90 and 100% pure. That's the major difference between the two. The difference is that the high that you're going to get from this is going to last you approximately half an hour. The high that you're going to get from this is only going to last you 7, maybe 8 minutes at the top. But the reason this is so popular is because, as the addicts put it, this is that ultimate high that they have always been seeking.
Hopkins' specialty is research, gathered in an unorthodox manner from an unorthodox kind of research team. 8 former drug abusers who work undercover in the streets, keeping an ear to the ground and reporting back to him on anything that might help put an end to the growing drug epidemic. Because their work is essentially undercover, members of the team didn't want their faces shown.
Let's try to get some idea of what kind of things y'all are picking up in the street.
In some places I found where they were giving out samples to people that hadn't used it to develop a market. Because a lot of people that I know have told me they've tried it once, and after that once, they couldn't stop. It was like getting on a train and they couldn't get off it. And I haven't found a drug that was so powerful mentally.
I know a lot of people that have went from the needle to crack. And the rationale that they use is, one, that they want to get away from catching AIDS. So instead of shooting cocaine or heroin, they begin to smoke crack, where they don't have the danger of using the needle. It's easily accessible. They can even put in a cigarette or something, or a joint.
What I've picked up in the last 2 weeks is a lot of hawking of amphetamines and ups, Black Beauties, rainbows, hearts, different things that weren't on the street. And I see these being used and sold to crack users. Like if you're crashing, here, take one of these will keep you up until you can re-up.
The team first heard about crack in 1983 when one member saw someone smoking a lump of cocaine.
We kind of questioned it because we know what smoking cocaine usually looks like. It's usually not in the form of a lump, but in the form of crystals. Okay? But nevertheless, we began to continue to follow it. And when we actually found out that it was cocaine, we knew immediately we were onto something extremely serious.
What exactly was it that caused you to be so alarmed about crack?
We knew how lethal cocaine smoking was from the 70s when it was beginning to get popular. We knew that we had many cases of cocaine psychosis, okay, people who had become psychotic from smoking it. So we knew all along that smoking cocaine was extremely deadly. The problem was in the 70s and in the early 80s, it was not easy to convert street cocaine into a form that you could smoke it. And you can't smoke street cocaine as it is. If you put a match to it, you'll just burn up your stash, as they say in the street. The major difference in crack is that now, instead of going through a very complex system of converting street cocaine so you could smoke it, it become a very simple thing to do.
To show us how simple it is to make crack, Hopkins escorted our camera crew to a Harlem tenement known as a base or crack house. There are believed to be hundreds, if not thousands, of such houses producing crack in New York. Users go there to smoke it. Although they're breaking the law, the men in this room trust Hopkins and his research team because they've developed an understanding that their mission is research, not police work. Hopkins will not turn them in.
I'll show you how they bring it back to a rock form. They take some of the white and they mix it with the reds, right? They'll take it and they'll burn it.
It melts into an oil.
It melts into an oil, right? Then I'll take this and I'll bring it back to a rock.
And that crack is good.
This is the best one.
You mix the residue with some of the white, into an oil, and then you stir the oil.
Right.
And then that's the way you let it dry.
Let it dry.
And then scrape it together. And now what you have is
almost $10 worth of cocaine.
And it's actually a better
flavor, better taste.
Crack is sometimes mixed with other highly potent drugs like PCP, the pain-killing street drug known as angel dust. These men know better than anyone what that can do.
So you can spend like maybe, say, $60 or $40 and be satisfied. But if you got these cracks, that's why they're so hard on these cracks, because what it does to people. But it's not the cocaine, it's the stuff that they put in the cracks. That's what makes a person, you know, like say, keep going, like they say, the things that they do for cracks. It's like it's really, you can't describe it. It's just like a desire and what you call like something that you want real bad, you know, and like you'll do anything for it.
What's some of the things people do for it?
Oh, I seen a broad pawn a baby, you know, 2-year-old little boy to the crack man for 2 cracks.
Just gave it to her?
Just, you know, pawned her son to him. Otherwise, she's going to pawn for him to hold.
Keep my son,
you know,
till I come back with $20.
Like thing as far as women is concerned, like they'll do anything. We had one woman, one young lady, and for just a hit off the pipe, there was about 5 guys in the room, and she did anything the 5 guys wanted. Just for that, not even a $5 piece or a $10 piece, just for a pull off the pipe. She did whatever they wanted.
Hopkins says it's important not only to his research to maintain contacts with such drug addicts, it's the only way to really help them.
Some of these young guys that are using crack are using it with PCP.
Right.
And the combination of these two is where these people are. That's where you're dangerous. This is your bomb that's ready to explode at the least little thing. I have heard of one case in Jersey where a guy was so paranoid, he thought that there was a narc hiding out in his carburetor, in his car, and he took a shotgun and shot up his engine.
We're seeing violence involved with it. We're seeing that it's both men and women. We're seeing that sex is involved with it. Are we seeing it improve any or getting worse in the last 3 months?
Worse.
We discuss new terms we hear in the street. Sometimes it's a drug, sometimes it's just a street term. If we know what it is, we record it. We record it because we get calls from the police department, from the FBI, from the DEA, from school personnel, from drug treatment people saying, what does this word mean and what does that word mean? So we become like a clearing agency for that.
Law enforcement officials like New York City Special Prosecutor Sterling Johnson say the information he gets from Hopkins helps him determine his priorities and redirect his limited resources.
I may get a lot of raw intelligence from Bill, and sometimes it might have no meaning to me, or it might just have a general meaning, and I'll ask him specifically, what does it mean? Why is it that people sell crack in vials with a blue top as opposed to a black top? Why has maybe a particular crack center been shifted, say, from the Lower East Side up to Washington Heights? You know, what types of people are selling crack? As a general rule, everybody sells crack, but what ethnic groups are involved? And not only will he get the information and disseminate it, but he'll analyze it.
Johnson says that Hopkins' work is invaluable to his efforts.
I don't think that there is any other unit or organization in the country that does the things anywhere near what Bill does, what his unit does.
So far, in the past 8 months, crack has accounted for as much as half of all federally prosecuted drug cases in New York City. Also, the New York City Police Department has established a special crack police team, 101 veteran undercover officers. So far, in the 2 months that they've been organized, at least 188 street dealers have been arrested, police say. As a former undercover policeman himself, Hopkins says there's a big difference in the work now than when he was on the street 20 years ago.
The major difference in what's going on the street today and compared to what might have been going on in the 60s, I believe, is the attitudes of the young people. They were dealing with drugs then, but it was not so open and accepted. It was still the kind of thing that's hidden. Today, people are not ashamed, the kids especially, are not ashamed to tell other kids that they use drugs and that they try drugs and that they experiment with drugs. Many of them actually brag about the fact that they use crack. They call it beaming up, okay? That's a term they got from Star Trek. They say, do you smoke? Do you this? Oh, no, I beam up, indicating, you know, I'm great, I use crack.
Such attitudes fuel Hopkins' crusade against crack.
I just feel that if we could do much more to stop it from coming in, it would certainly reduce the problem. It's not going to solve it, but it would certainly reduce it. I also think a tremendous educational job has to be done. And I believe drugs can be beat. It's not easy, but I believe it can be beat.